Managing friendships, especially as an adult, can be very, very challenging. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Yates Anya, Steph Anya for short, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Today, we're going to be talking about all of the complexities that can come with friendships in adulthood. If you're curious, stay tuned. I want to thank today's sponsor, which is Babbel. You all know I love working with Babbel. I think it's a fantastic way to quickly learn another language. You can learn a new language in as little as 3 weeks with Babbel. They are one of the top language learning apps in the world. Babbel has been amazing for me, especially when it comes to being able to communicate when I'm traveling. I like to be able to tell taxi drivers specifics about our trip. And a lot of times we get to learn cool things that might be happening in a city that we're in because I'm able to communicate. I also have long-term dreams of being able to support Spanish-speaking clients. I'm not fluent yet, but I definitely am getting to the point of being pretty conversational. I'm really grateful to have Babbel to support me as I continue exploring the world. If you're interested in trying Babbel for yourself, please use the link in the description box to get 60% off of a subscription. We've officially made it into the season of learning, and Babbel is a great way to expand your knowledge. Now let's get back into the video. I put up a community tab post a couple of weeks ago asking you all to let me know your video requests, and I promised that I would do the ones that had the highest upvotes. This was the third most liked comment. Not only that, there were several iterations of this comment as well. So I figured that talking about friendships is something that a lot of you are really wanting to see on the channel. Let's talk about some of the challenges that come with friendship and adulthood specifically. So one of the biggest barriers is time. We become accustomed to a certain amount of time that would be appropriate in friendships prior to adulthood. When you're in school, especially elementary school, middle school, high school, you're seeing your closest friends every day. It's not really a coincidence that most of our best friends would be going to the exact same school with us, have a lot of the same classes with us, because proximity is breeding that familiarity that makes you feel comfortable with the person. When you get to college, really that experience is magnified because you're both living on campus most of the time. Sometimes we develop really close relationships with our roommates on campus. And a lot of times when we go to college, we're having to say goodbye to the close friendships we had through grade school because now we're starting over, maybe even in a new state. So there's this very rapid progression of relationships because we're starting from scratch. And there's a pressure we feel to have support as we make a huge transition in our life. So we develop almost an unrealistic expectation for what it means to spend time with your friends. Our understanding of friendship as we move into adulthood can be a very, very different experience than what is actually feasible for us once the constraints of adulthood hit us. So time is a major barrier because some of the milestones that come with adulthood, like jobs, getting in a relationship, getting married, having children. And some of us don't have those things. And in those situations, you're trying to also navigate what should my expectations be of a friend who might be in that stage of life. I'm not there, so I do still have the time to spend with my friend, and I would like to be able to still spend time with my friend, but I'm starting to feel like an afterthought. And so when we get to this stage of life, I see friendship relationships breaking down at very different points. But the biggest one that I hear, and actually is a reflection of some of the comments that I saw, was really around those life milestones. When we enter the workforce, a lot of times that is understood by our friends because they're also moving into that phase of life as well. So we both understand that we're busy and we're working. Where things start becoming a bit more complicated is when the factors competing for your time are other people. So once you have a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, and you're choosing to spend time with them, or it feels like your friend is choosing to spend time with their partner instead of with you, it becomes very, very difficult to maintain and manage friendships. So what do we do? First, I have to say there's no one way to conduct a relationship when it comes to healthily managing friendship. What I will say is that there are some things that can indicate that a friendship might be coming to a point where it doesn't make sense to be a primary relationship in your life. And some of the signs of that, when you and your friend no longer have things to talk about or things in common, when you might be getting to a point where you no longer trust your friend with what's happening in your life. I'll give you some examples of that. that if you are, let's say, in a relationship and you feel that your friend has become very frustrated with you spending time with your partner, which is understandable, but you start getting to a point where because of that, if there's issues in your relationship, you don't take it to that friend because you know they already have frustrations with your partner regarding how much time they're taking of yours, and you're feeling like if I tell them anything negative about my partner, they're gonna harp on that, and I don't want them to not like my partner any more than they already don't. That's an example of a trust bond being broken in a friendship because you no longer trust your friend to give you a listening ear and to remain as impartial as they can when you're sharing about things happening in your life, which a lot of those things may be revolving around your relationship. Also, if you don't trust that your friend won't take your information or business and share it in other spaces. When we're in high school, even college, we're a lot more naive. We don't really anticipate the repercussions of some of our actions, but as adults, we are fully aware that if people knew about certain things that we were doing, we're cognizant of the fact that there could be major consequences that could cost us our job, cost us our relationship, and things become a bit more precious in terms of the information that we share. So if you start getting to a point with a friend where you no longer feel comfortable sharing the private, intimate details of your life, that might be an indication that that relationship no longer makes sense as a primary relationship. So the question that everyone is asking is, what do we do about that? What is healthy? How do we ensure that we have healthy relationships? How do we preserve the relationships that do matter to us but might be getting a bit off course? There are a few things that I want you to think about, and the top thing, of course, is going to be around communication. Because we have history with some people, we've developed an established dynamic with someone. It can be difficult sometimes to break that, disrupt that, and have conversations that we wouldn't typically have. If you no longer feel safe to be open with your friend about how certain things impact you emotionally, that also could be an indication that the priority of that relationship is expiring. So if you do feel safe to open up to this person still, you want to be able to tell them how you're feeling and avoid using accusatory language. So instead of saying, you never make time for me anymore, you want to say, I miss you and I feel that we really haven't had an opportunity to get together. How can we ensure that we have some quality time? You can also check in with them. Do you also feel that we haven't been spending enough time with each other? Because what you may find is that for that person, you all might be spending a quality amount of time and you guys have mismatched perceptions of what that really should look like. And that is a difficult thing when people have different needs in relationships. If you're the type of person who needs more time than that person needs, then how do we negotiate that? Sometimes you have to come up with a compromise. If you ask them outright how much time is ideal for you for us to hang out, and they say, well, I'm happy with us meeting up once a month, and you say, well, I would really like us to get together 3 or 4 times a month. Maybe you guys start by working up to 2 times a month and see how that feels, and see if it makes sense to incorporate more time, or see if maybe you would be satisfied with having 2 times a month. That feels like something that is feasible for you. We also have to be willing to end relationships that are actually damaging to our mental health. If you're in a position where you feel like you have a relationship where a person is constantly criticizing you, critiquing you, or making you feel bad about where you are in life, that might be an indication again that that relationship priority is expiring. When I say the relationship priority is expiring, I'm meaning that you don't necessarily have to cut this person out of your life completely, but you might need to make a mental shift that this person is not one of your go-to people. You might let go of the language of this is my best friend. Those kind of things might actually help to alleviate some of the expectations that you have around those roles that are making it so that you are very frustrated and miserable in the relationship with them. If you can think of this person as a childhood friend, or even just a person you're really fond of or have a lot of history with, you might not feel that same level of disappointment about the amount of effort that they're putting into the relationship. Another thing you may want to consider, and I highly encourage this, is asking yourself if you need to cultivate new relationships relationships at your current stage of life. This does not necessarily mean that you are getting rid of your initial relationships, but it actually, again, may take pressure off of those relationships if you have other people to talk to about specific areas of your life. Like I said earlier, if maybe with one of your closest friends, you don't really feel comfortable discussing your marriage, for example, maybe you develop friends who are in a similar stage of life and you can talk with them a little bit more and they might understand because they understand the nuances that come with that type of relationship. If you don't have any friends who have children, maybe you need to kind of focus on developing some more mom relationships where you can go to them specifically about those things and reserve some of those initial relationships for the areas that you all might really thrive in, such as enjoying new foods together or going on trips together or whatever that relationship really does well with. If you don't want to let that go, that's okay, but you might need to add new relationships in so that you are having all of your needs met. A huge focus of any work that I do with the client is what we call mobilizing social support. What that means is that I don't want my client to be dependent on me for all of their emotional support. It's unhealthy and it creates a dependent relationship. So if I have clients that I've been seeing for a long time that still need to meet weekly, that really have a difficult time managing their own emotions, that to me lets me know that either they don't have good social support or the support they have around them is actually contributing to their stress in a way where therapy is their only outlet. To have a solid friend is extremely important. I encourage that with my couples as well. If you are in a relationship where your partner is the only person you speak to, I know we do glamorize that. I definitely had a huge fantasy regarding that when I was coming up, especially for those of us who felt like we didn't necessarily fit in any particular group. When you finally find that person that accepts you for everything that you are and they not only tolerate it but celebrate it and love it, that's addicting. You want to be around that all of the time. However, those relationships come with their own unique challenges and you need a place to process. Even if you're not comfortable talking with your friends about what's happening in your relationship, it's good to still just have a place to go to have fun and kind of dissociate from what's happening at home for a little bit. And it can also give you an opportunity to just reflect and come back, be in a better mood, whatever that looks like. So friendships are important. To maintain healthy friendships as an adult, like I said, you have to make sure you're communicating what you're needing and what you're willing to give. So if your friend comes to you, you're on the opposite end of things and they're saying you're not spending enough time with me, be honest with them and say, really, at this stage of my life, I can only offer this. I don't want you to cut me off. I want to be in your life. I love you, but I encourage you to find relationships outside of this one if you're not getting what you need, because it's important to me that you feel emotionally supported and I can see that I'm not able to provide you with that. So we're able to really provide the assurances that people need most of the time just through speaking. You might not have the time, but you can assure them, I love you. I want to continue spending time with you, but I just am at a place in my life where I know I cannot give you what you deserve in a friendship, and I want you to be able to have that elsewhere. We need to be very careful about the jealousy that sometimes can creep up when our friends do start developing relationships outside of us. A lot of times that is happening because they are trying to make sure their cup is filled with love, especially for our friends who might be in a different stage of life than we are. If you have a friend that's in graduate school, you're not in graduate school, you might be doing your own thing, that person might need the support of other people who understand what that experience is like, and they're developing relationships so they can get support in that specific area. You might be able to provide them with blanket support and assurances and love and tell them how smart they are, but they might need something more specific that they are not able to get from you. So as adults, I think one of the biggest signs of dysfunction that I see in adult friendships is this tendency to be very uncomfortable with allowing our friends to develop other relationships. And sometimes we'll sabotage those relationships, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. We listen to them if they share something about a friend and we start saying things that might make them look at that person in a way where they weren't looking at them in that way before. We start getting frustrated if their new friends want to be a part of planning their baby shower or their wedding or their birthday. You start feeling like someone is stealing your friend away. But if we are willing and able to give our friends what we're capable of and they're communicating to us what they need, that friendship should be safe. How do we deal with heartbreak when we do recognize that a relationship might have run its course? Sometimes we need to really mourn that like we would mourn a death. So that to me looks like taking the time to appreciate all the wonderful memories you all have had, looking at pictures, looking at videos, looking at old Facebook posts of things that really show that relationship, and taking a stance of gratitude about that relationship and all that it provided us with, but also making sure that we have a way of establishing boundaries in relationships that have run their course. Sometimes we get to a point where a relationship is toxic and we don't feel our best selves in the relationship, and the best thing that we can do is to communicate that we need some distance. People have asked me my thoughts on ghosting people who are your friends. The only time that I really support ghosting is when you've tried to communicate it to someone and they're just not respecting your boundaries, and the only thing you can do is just go silent on them. However, I think for the most part, ghosting puts us at a disadvantage because it prevents someone from being able to learn from their past mistakes. It's like when you interview for a job and you don't get the job, and all you want to know is why. You just want someone to give you an answer as to what you could have done differently so that the next job interview you can do a little bit better. And sometimes we're refusing to give people those basic courtesies, especially for someone who's meant something to us for a long time. I personally always will advocate for having a conversation. Unless a person is cruel, if you feel like they've completely flipped the script on you, that makes sense why you would feel like you have to just stop talking to them altogether. But if it's someone who has held significance for you, then I think that you should have a conversation. What should you say? I would say something along the lines of, I've realized that we're both at a point in our lives where this relationship is probably doing us more harm than good. I'm very appreciative of all of the wonderful times that we've had together. However, I feel like we're at a point where if we continue with this relationship, we'll ruin some of the beautiful memories that we have created together. See where they're at. They may agree with you. They may say, I've been thinking about this as well. They may tell you it hurts to hear that, but they can see why you would say that. They may get mad. Honestly, if they get really angry about it and start being hurtful and spiteful, the only thing that does is reaffirm that you've made the right decision. So a lot of times when my clients are afraid to have these conversations, I say either they're going to give you support in your decision, or they're going to show you support by showing you that you made the right decision. Maybe they never respond to you, but if your biggest fear is being ghosted, then I definitely don't think that you should be ghosting other people. So this is the kind of thing that helps you grow, hopefully can help them grow if they're in a place to hear it. But it's really, really critical for us to build our comfort with having tough conversations. It will serve us well in a work environment. It will serve us well in our marriages or relationships. It will serve us well with our children when our children get older and we need to have conversations with them. We need the practice. I think that's something that we're losing today because of conversations that happen in such a digital space that it's easy to just lose that personal touch, the intimate touch sometimes that comes with difficult conversation. We don't look people in the eye anymore when things get tough. And I think that's an important characteristic to hold on to. And so if you're able to have that conversation, if you can't, maybe you can do it via text. If you think you and that person thrive best with that sort of communication when it's something difficult. But there are times where we need to end a relationship, and you'll know if you're anxious and dreading every time you're getting with someone, if you leave a hangout and you feel bad about yourself, you feel bad about the relationship, or if you feel like you're putting in a lot of effort with someone who just doesn't really seem to care to spend time with you, those are all indications that this might not really be a relationship worth your time. And there's somebody out there who's at a similar place in life who needs friendships. They're needing to rebuild their social support again, and you'll find each other and you can start developing that relationship. There's nothing I love more than having a client who's in their 30s who meets someone else in their 30s who's in need of a relationship, and to see that relationship thrive because of everything that they've been able to learn from their mistakes of the past. That's the other thing we want to think about when we are ending a relationship. Part of the mourning process is taking accountability. Where do you feel you went wrong? Do you think you should have ended this relationship years ago? Do you feel like if you would have communicated certain things years ago, the relationship wouldn't be in this place? Do you think you may have enabled certain behaviors? Were you a poor communicator? These are all things that you should be reflecting on to get an idea about how you can be a better friend in the future. I do believe that friendship is extremely important, especially in adulthood, because we encounter so many transitions. We've never done this before. A lot of us are encountering transitions that our parents have never done before, so we can't even go to them for advice on what to do. So we do need friendships, and it's important as an adult to make time for those friendships. They are an important part of our mental health. However, we need to be realistic about how much time we can offer to a relationship. Some resources: I love Bumble for Friends. I've had so many clients who've been able to meet people through Bumble for Friends, especially when you move to a new city and you have to start all over. Also, I met some of my closest friends through Facebook, and it's crazy because I'm just not that kind of person, but I was looking for people who are in a similar stage of life as me, and it's interesting to see that just when you think you might be good on relationships, or you're done with friendships, or whatever the case may be, that you might meet people who are at the same stage of life who are looking for similar support. So make sure you keep hoping, stay open. It's important to be vulnerable. It's important to build intimacy in those relationships. But the thing we learn in adulthood is that you can't just trust everyone. Start building your discernment. How do you personally determine if a person is worth opening up to? Some of us overshare out of pure anxiety, and then we regret the things that we say, and we avoid somebody because we're just embarrassed. So don't be the reason why your relationships don't progress. Come up with a list. What sorts of things show you that a person is trustworthy and reliable? We can't always get it right. We're not fortune tellers, but sometimes we ignore red flags with friendships that we wouldn't ignore with the romantic relationship or date. These are some of the things that were really important to me. I wanted to see, how do they talk about their other friends? I wanted to understand if they were at a point where they needed to rebuild their friendships, what was the reason? I wanted to hear, was there any level of accountability, or is it that they're the victim in every situation? These are things that kind of give me an idea about if that person has a good level of self-awareness. For me, that is the most important quality in a friend. I need them to be able to be self-aware. I don't need them to be perfect. If you know that you have certain struggles with maintaining relationships, as long as you're aware of them and you're working on them, that's enough for me. I don't expect anyone to be perfect. You might have those things that you've experienced in past relationships that don't work for you. Like if you are the type of person that likes to talk on the phone and you don't like only texting, becoming close friends with someone who doesn't like being on the phone is probably not a great idea for you. If you're going to be triggered by them not answering the phone, not calling back. I know I'm not a phone person, and I have some friends who are huge phone people, but you have to be able to find that balance so that neither one of you is feeling like, oh, this person is always calling me, and the other one feels like they never pick up my call. You have to know what your personal limits are so that you can establish a good relationship from the beginning. You don't want to waste time on someone who you never had platonic compatibility with. If you're in a stage of life where you are feeling alone and lonely because the relationships that you thought would last you for a lifetime are dwindling out, I am so sorry that you are in that position. That is a very uncomfortable space to be in. I am hopeful for you that you will be able to find people who want to support you in the way that you want to be supported, and that you'll be able to support in the same way. Life is long, and we meet people every step of the way. If you're going to exercise classes, don't be afraid to ask for someone's number if you think they're cool, if you think they're fun. Meet up for coffee, meet up for drinks. If you're part of a book community or a book club, do a little buddy read on the side with somebody. Get conversations going in the spaces that you're already in. Maybe you need to join a church if you've been wanting to have a community of people who might be on the same page as you spiritually. There are so many options for us to meet people, and it's very uncomfortable putting ourselves out there. It's really like dating, trying to make new friends, but it's definitely possible, especially if you remain open and give people the benefit of the doubt. People aren't going to always get it right, but you should be at a point where you're comfortable communicating if something hurt you, so that that person can work on that or show you who they are, so that you can know sooner rather than later that this might not be a relationship that you want to continue investing in. Be aware of your needs as a friend. Some of us really need very low maintenance friendships. We need people who don't expect to talk to us every day, who don't want to get together all the time. Those kind of relationships do exist, and they're healthy too. You don't have to be in constant communication with someone for the relationship to be healthy. The only thing needed for the relationship to be healthy is that the time you all spend together feels good for both of you, and that you feel like you are growing through the relationship. The conversations you're having make you think about different things or make you laugh, and you feel good about the relationship as is. Your relationship doesn't need to look like anyone else's relationship. So be honest about what you're needing and what you're willing to provide as a friend. So those are my main thoughts about maintaining relationships as adults. It is very complicated. So if there's something that I didn't get to that you wanted me to talk about, please let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video to this. Thank you guys as always for your suggestions. Thanks again to Babbel for sponsoring a portion of today's video. If you'd like to try them out for yourself, please check out the link in the description box. Please subscribe to my channel channel, like this video, share it with anyone that you think may find it useful. I really appreciate you watching this video until the end. You didn't have to do that, but the fact that you did helps me out so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you.